Welcome to the best damn video game podcast ever on 2dx.com.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tim Torres, your host, and today we have a very special guest. Today we have DC.
Oh, DC Douglas. They didn't know my name, so I had to chime in. That doesn't bode well for the interview.
Today we also have Tatjana.
Hello.
Who is our managing editor at 2dx.com, and we also have Tony. Tony, who are you?
I am a staff writer for DualShockers.com. Hello, everyone.
And we're here to interview DC Douglas, who you might know from Resident Evil 5, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Mass Effect, and a whole slew of other voice acting credits. And to roll...
Transformers Rescue Bots on the Hub. Season 2 begins March 1st. Okay, just had to get that out.
Oh, okay.
For you 5-year-olds who are watching.
Yes.
And 25 and 35.
Yeah, actually, I enjoy watching the show. So.
Yeah, if age doesn't matter, just watch what you like and play what you like and do whatever you want within reason.
Within the laws of the state you're in.
Yeah. What can you tell us about the new show? I am unfamiliar with this Transformers iteration.
Oh, very cool. Transformers Rescue Bots. We've had our first season, which has been playing for 2 years, for reasons that we really don't know why. Things are very different in the toy world, and a network that's run by its toy sales is a whole different beast as opposed to like Nickelodeon or Disney or what have you. So different things happen. But regardless, the show is a hit. The toys are a hit, which is why we're still around. And the show essentially it follows 4 rescue bots. They're Autobots, but they're rescue bots. They have a very specific mission. But they've been in stasis for who knows how long. They were sent on a mission by Optimus Prime to go to this island off of Maine in the United States to help with the people of this island. Now, this island's a very special island. It's an inventor's island. So it's a very small community. They're always creating new things that also get them in trouble, and so the rescue bots are there to help them. So to everybody on the island, we're just robots, except for the family that we're helping, the Burns family, where we've revealed our true identity. And like Bumblebee's made an appearance, Optimus Prime is a recurring character. Tim Curry was on the first season as one of the antagonists.
Wow.
And the cast of the Autobots is myself as Chase, the police bot. Steve Bloom, who you guys know from lots of stuff, is Heatwave, who's the leader of our group. Parvesh Cheena, who you might know from Outsourced and NBC, is the scaredy cat helicopter. He's afraid of heights, but he's a helicopter. And Amari Williams is who's newer to the business, but an amazing voice and talent. Plays Boulder, who is the moves boulders. Dirt mover thing.
Bulldozer.
Also has Maurice LaMarche, Pinky the Brain, anybody? And a slew of other things. Also to mention the voice of Lexus right now. He's on it as, he actually drives me, so Maurice has been inside me many times. And he's awesome. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's true. And then we have, and then Jason Marsden, who's been in a ton of stuff, is one of the families. Lacey Chabert, who you guys know from Party of 5 and Mean Girls and all that, is she drives Blades. And Shannon McCain, hysterical writer, improv actor, is part of the family also. Oh, and of course the star of our show is Cody, who's played by Alon Garfilas, and LeVar Burton and Diamond White, who was on The X Factor, are also on the show. And it's an amazing cast, directed by Judy McSwain, and it's on the Hub, and everybody should watch it. It starts on March 1st, and then it moves to Saturdays.
Cool. Sounds good. Is this the only?
Does it? Sounds like it does. Together, doesn't it?
I mean, the way you described it as like medical bots, I was like, is this MASH, the Transformers version?
I guess it is, but here's the thing: there's never any, the death, destruction. No one loses a limb. There's no blood, and there are no Decepticons, which I know upsets some people. But this is for this is an introduction show to the whole Transformers universe. So it's for the younger audience. So they get hooked to this, and then they can move on to the more adult shows. The funny thing is once you watch like 3 episodes in a row, you kind of get into it, and you're like, yeah, I know it's for like the 6-year-old, but the writers write the show for stuff to what makes them laugh. So yet they also, so it's stuff that works for kids, but it also works for adults. That's the neat thing about the show. So that's what the hub is. Or that's what the Rescue Bots is on the hub.
Well, those are the best kind of cartoons, like Animaniacs and Looney Tunes and
exactly.
So DC, you know,
Kitty cat.
Cat.
This is Tolly, like Tolly from Mass Effect. Tolly. This is Tolly Zora Voss Kitty.
Bring her over here. Might as well get the.
Say hi to Legion, Tolly. Legion and you might not like each other at first, but then you guys became friends.
Yes.
Does Tolly have a question?
Tolly, do you wanna ask a question?
I think Tolly has a request, which is leave me the fuck alone.
Tolly wants to know if this unit has a soul.
Funny coming from a cat that's got 9 lives, but. So
tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into voice acting.
I don't know who I am. I don't know how I got into this business. Let's see here. Well, I started, I knew since 7 years old that I wanted to be an actor, and then I got into community theater when I was really young, around 11 years old. And by the time I was 19, I was in LA going to an acting school. But in the time that I came to LA to look for an acting school, I auditioned for 7 of them. I looked them up in the Yellow Pages because there was no internet. And I misunderstood one of them, which was a voiceover workshop, but it wasn't listed that way, and I wouldn't have known what voiceover was anyway. So I went and I auditioned for 7 schools this weekend, and in one of them was this lady, Barbara Gill, and I came in there, and of course, with all these schools, you have to do a contemporary and a classic monologue to perform, and so I had my 2 monologues that I would perform. Silly enough, my contemporary, I just realized, was from the 1940s, and then I would do a Shakespeare monologue. I think it was from The Tempest. And so I went into her, and she's like, hi. And I went, hi, I've got my monologues ready. And she's like, okay, if you'd like to perform them. So I performed them. She goes, that was nice. You know, I'm not an acting teacher per se. I'm a voiceover teacher, which I had no idea what that was. So she explained it to me, and she said, you, by the way, have a wonderful voice. You know, this is where I wasn't sure if it was a sales pitch or not, but she said you should consider studying voiceover as well, because it'll help you with, it'll inform your acting and vice versa. Which, of course, is very true. In fact, it's more true than even how she said it. In fact, I would say anybody who wants to do voiceover should start with an acting class and then do improv and do singing and then get into a voiceover class, or do them at the same time. But it will help your voiceover out immensely. But she was right in that I had 6 months before I was going to start the school I decided to go to, which was Stella Harmon's Actors Workshop. So I started with her, and I learned things. You know, I learned basic technical things, word color, character, point of view, all these things that, of course, become very handy once you are given the sides for your audition for whatever that is, whatever TV show or movie that is, and you've got to make decisions really quick, so you can go in there and have a very grounded performance. And so it helped a lot to study with her first before I went there. But of course, no voiceover stuff happened for me until early '90s. I've been trying to be an on-camera actor. I had done 4 years of that school. I had a little thing in Coach that got cut down to me being an extra, and I had a couple other things. And then I stumbled into an ADR group in the early '90s. An ADR is where you have like a movie or a TV show or even a commercial, and you've got a scene where the main people are talking and they're in a restaurant and you see all the people who are behind them talking. Well, those people are actually not talking when they shoot that. Later on in post-production, they put in those voices, and that's where the ADR group comes in, or a WALA is what they call it. And so I started with that kind of a group, filling in WALA and ADR and stuff. And then from there, I made connections with different people, and all of a sudden I'm doing like the voice of the AT&T ride at Epcot Center, which apparently was there for at least a decade. And then from there, I'm doing 1-900 commercials back when there was the 976 and the 900 lines that were out there, doing those kinds of things. It was like all sorts of stuff, and it just kind of evolved. And then all of a sudden, I somehow hooked into anime, doing replacing Japanese with English voice. And I didn't even know what anime was, to be honest with you. I wasn't a big cartoon watcher. In fact, when I was a kid, I was watching reruns of Bewitched and whatnot. So, but I went and I did these things, and it paid so horribly for considering that I could go do a commercial and make a certain amount of money in a half hour. But here I spent 4 hours and I made, a fraction of that. It just didn't seem to make sense. I had no idea about the con world at the time, and the cons were just starting to get big. then. So, but anyway, that stuff, one thing leads to another, and then all of a sudden I hit big with some commercial campaign things, and then I hit big with some video games that all of a sudden you guys know about me. I'd done video games for, at least 8 years prior to getting Resident Evil, Mass Effect, games that I got known for. I got my first big break was getting Geico, doing the celebrity campaign voices, and then I got in trouble because I called a Tea Party group retarded. That became big news on Fox News. And then all of a sudden in town, I was considered, like, all of a sudden I was somebody. Because they're like, oh, you're that guy. You're the Geico guy who went after the Tea Party and all that. And I'm like, yeah.
What anime did you do voices for? You remember?
I would have to, look it up, to be honest with you. A lot of it I didn't get credited for. And I couldn't tell you the names. Because literally they wouldn't tell me, like, you go in, you'd audition for a voice. You don't even know the name of the project. They're just saying, we want you to come in on a couple projects we're doing. You do a voice. They come in. They go, great. They book you. You go in. All of a sudden, they're just playing that character and the lines. You don't even know the context. And you're just replacing the lines as you go. And literally, there was one day I thought, this one's taking a while. I did it was like 4 hours, 2 sessions, 4 hours each. And I went, that's a lot for what I would usually do for the anime stuff. Turns out, apparently, I did the voice of a character for a whole season on a TV show. I had no idea it was a TV show and that I did that character.
Wow.
And the next year, they came back to me. And I said, again, I still didn't know. This next year, they came back and they said, we've got more for you. I want you to come in. And I went, oh, yeah, I'm not doing the whole anime stuff anymore, just because it doesn't pay really well, and I'd rather put my effort into getting commercials and stuff like that. And then the producer called me back. They were pissed at me, and they said, we want to go back and take your name off the show, and blah, blah. And I go, wait, I was on a show? And then it was like, I'm sorry, I didn't even, if you, and this is where it was screwed up, and our union's finally gotten better at it, but this was, at the time, it was like, $60 an hour or something, or $60 for 2 hours, I don't know, it was something really, I know it sounds like a lot, but if you only work,
that's not a lot.
Yeah, like, if you only work like 4 hours a week, then it's, you can't live off that. But it was like, I said, if I was the character on your show, you should have, one, told me that, two, had a contract and said you were the character on our show. And then I would have said, oh, I'm committing to this. But I didn't commit to anything. You guys called me in for 2 sessions. I didn't know I did 20 episodes in that session or whatever, So they were very pissed at me. But it's like I'd already, made my bed. And had I known about the cons and all of that, I would have said, okay, I'm coming back, because I love doing cons. But most of them are anime related, so it's a lot of them aren't that excited to have me, unless, of course, they've got a video game contingent when they're like, are you fucking, excuse me, well, I've been swearing.
Dude, come on.
It's like, fucking Resident Evil, Mass Effect, Tekken, it's, we've got to have them, and blah, blah, blah. So those cons love me, and then the anime ones are like, who? So I wish I had done more anime. Oh, but you asked titles. All right, so, well, I'm in the Tales of Graces F, Tales of Vesperia, Eternal Sonata. I'm in the Hack GU stuff as Gabby and Taihaku. Xenosaga.
Wait, those are video games you're naming right now, though.
Don't get like that with me. Anime roles, videos, and video games.
They do have an anime crossover.
Fighting Spirit.
Yeah.
I was Aiko's brother in Fighting Spirit. I was Champion Road Special for Hajime no Ippo, where I was Ippo. Or no, I was Makunuchi Ippo. I was in Kayakara Mao as Shori Shibuya. I was in Tales of the Word Radiant Mythology. Oh, that's a video game. Radiant Story. That was a video. The rest of these are video games. Yeah, okay, so not a lot. Like I said, I said, dude, didn't pay enough.
So, DC, how did you get so lucky into becoming what we know you best for today, and that's Albert Wesker?
I would have to credit two entities. I'd have to credit Cup of Tea Productions, run by these two wonderful sisters, that they brought me in to audition for Biohazard, Umbrella Chronicles. And the reason that Jessup was unavailable, Peter Jessup, who had done the voice previously, was unavailable. They were playing his voice, and they wanted me to voice match him, everybody who auditioned. And I came closest to the voice match, which I still think I was horrible, because Jessup had such a unique voice. He'd done Wesker in such a unique way. It was very hard to capture. Jessup is like brilliantly talented with dialects and character stuff. And I am a hack, and I know it, but I'm happy with it. So I came closest enough to it, and so I got that role. And then when it came time for Resident Evil 5, I had Ruben Langdon was a champion of mine. I didn't realize, but until I came in for the they wanted me to audition for the motion capture part of it as well. And this was way before I got into working out and getting back into shape. So I was, I was slender, but I had no core strength at all, and I had just bought a house and was carrying around bags of cement because I wanted to feel like I was helping out in the renovation. And I picked up one bag and threw out my back. And then they called for the audition. I said, I really can't do any kind of anything. And they said, well, come in because you just have to point a gun and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I go in. That's when Ruben said, we really loved what you did in Umbrella Chronicles and really want you to be in RE5 and blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to do it. And they go, you're definitely going to be the voice, but we'd love for you to do the body, the motion capture thing. So then the audition happens, and then the director's like, in Japanese or what have you, and I don't do Japanese, so I'm not going to offend anybody. As well, I probably will, but anyway. But they're like going, okay. So you start, you point, then you tumble, and you roll 3 times, flip around, kick him, and then hold together. And I'm like,
oh my god,
I can't do that. I'm in utter pain right now. Just to turn the gun hurts. So, needless to say, I sucked, and then I went to Ken Lally, who of course is great at that stuff and other stuff as well. So we basically shared the character in RE5. He did the body of it, and then I did the facial mocap in the voiceover sessions and the voiceover. Very unusual recording sessions. That's how I became known as Resident Evil, was because of that. And a lot of people were upset because Richard Waugh had been the main voice. He had done the most games up to that point, Jessup being second, and then, of course, Sergio Jones having done the first one. But a lot of them were upset that Richard Waugh wasn't continuing it, and even Richard Waugh was upset because apparently they had started recording with him on Umbrella Chronicles and then switched it up. And the reason being had nothing to do with him, his performance, or anything. It had to do with the fact, it had to do with money is what it did. They had, and it's a corporate decision. They're starting it here, and they go, wait a minute, we're putting all our eggs over in this LA basket because we've got a better financial deal. So they pulled production, moved it over to LA, and then at that point, they wanted it all controlled in Los Angeles. And of course, you got different people heading the project. So whoever was heading it there is no longer heading it in LA, and then they replaced whatever he had recorded for Umbrella Chronicles. And again, the guy who was head of the Umbrella Chronicles in LA said, I'm more, akin to the Jessup voice, or like the Jessup voice. So that's why all of a sudden I was matching him, which was also the mind fuck of when I went in for RE5, and I go for first day of recording, and they go, okay, so here's Waugh, and try to capture this vibe. And I'm like, oh, I've been working on Jessup at home, and now I'm going to match Richard Waugh's, performance. It made it very difficult. And then, of course, the character evolves, and I got to put in more of my own stuff, which was good. So. But did that answer the question? Because I kind of
Yes, it answered it.
No, absolutely, it did. My next question for you is, and I know that when you go to cons, you read the erotica that people have wrote and stuff, but I mean, Albert Wesker.
That, baby. That whole panel is a special thing.
I need to go one of these. No, I'm not dissing it at all. I'm not dissing it at all. Like, I want to go hear you say some of the dirtiest shit on the internet. And
it's not just me. It's not just me. It is, for every one that I read, I'm reading with somebody else. So I'm pulling people from the audience to read with me. So it's an interactive experience. Yes. And it's great because, sometimes you bring people and they're like, they're like, hey, am I reading? And they do the thing. But sometimes you get someone up there and like going, oh, and they get totally into it. And you're like, oh my God, brava.
Love it.
So what do you think about all the fandom that comes with Wesker? Like, do you embrace it? Are you kind of weirded out by the fact that people, swoon over you? Or
I embrace it completely. That was the inspiration for the panel, was that all these people kept hinting at this, or they'd send me some things and things like that. And it's like, well, if this is what you guys are into, let's have some fun with it and do a panel with it. I'm there anyway. It's so much more interesting than me going and doing 3 Q&A panels for the weekend, because they're all the same people coming to the panels, So after the first Q&A, it's like, okay, they got the questions out of the way. Let's have some performance. So I've made it a 90-minute panel. I'm trying to keep it a 90-minute panel. It depends on the con, and if they'll let me do it, because some of them are very PG-13. But if they'll let me do it, it's a 90-minute panel, and it's a performance. It's like I feel like I've done a one-man show with help from the audience by the end of it, and it's so funny because it is very dirty. It's very sexual. But it is more funny than anything. There's more laughter in that 90 minutes than anything else, and people seem to really enjoy it. and it keeps expanding because even after the last one I did, I queried the audience. It was at this small new con called EvilCon in Florida, and I got even more ideas to add in a couple other larger pieces. So the next time I do it, which will probably be unless someone else books me prior, it'll be at A&G, Ohio, in beginning of April. Is the next time I think I'll do it, because I'm going to be at UltraCon in Fort Lauderdale this month or February, but I think that's more of a PG-13 crowd, so I won't be doing the panel there.
Okay.
But yes, I embrace it. That's why I started the panel. Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm all about letting your free flag fly, as long as you're not hurting other people or purposefully. Like, the things that I don't like are some people get into that weird. I shouldn't say weird. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, I will say weird when it's a power play thing and it's a way of objectifying women in a disrespectful manner. Then I'm kind of turned off by that. Like some of the stuff that was sent in to me, because I queried the crowd. I crowdsourced all the material. Some of it came in, and I was like, it's a good story up until this point, and this is when you kind of cross the line and you become disrespectful. And that's when I would rewrite it and like flip it around so that all of a sudden that she's got some power as well. So, but that's in any group, in any society. There's always going to be that one side fringe there that's kind of working out their own mommy issues or whatever.
So, you did a really good job of portraying Wesker and doing it accurately and not losing like the feel that Wesker had. What was your biggest challenge with the role in any game that you've done as Wesker? I'm talking like Umbrella Chronicles, Marvel vs. Capcom, Resident Evil, any game. What was your biggest challenge?
His voice has always been a challenge, and it's funny. It's like I've settled on where he was right before he mutates. That's the voice that I kind of do now when I do my parody videos and things like that for fans, or when I'm doing the panel. I've settled into that particular voice because that was the one that was closest to what I wanted to do with him. But when I go back to the earlier ones, like Umbrella Chronicles, I listen to that and I'm like going, it's a horror. I think it's just a bad impersonation of Peter Jessup, and so I don't try to do that. But doing that one was a challenge, also because I knew nothing of the game at the time, and they only had so much context to give me, and it was these monologues, and I spent more time trying to keep into the vibe of his voice than I was even understanding what it was I was saying, and all the different story elements I was referring to. And of course, the Resident Evil 5, one of the biggest challenges, aside from on the fly learning how to do Waz's version of the voice as best I could, I was also getting, Liam O'Brien had his take on what he wanted the character to be as well, so I'm incorporating that. You have producers that have their thing for this version of the game that I had to incorporate, and then I had what I wanted to do, which you try to slip in as well through all of that. Meanwhile, while doing all of that, you've got all these little dots, these metal things on you, these balls in your face. You got all these cameras on a rig all the way around you with these lasers pointing at your face, so you can't lift your hand up here. So you have to do, and if you're talking, like you may be talking to somebody and you want to talk to somebody else, you can't do that. They want your face straight, so you're like going, and Bob, and by the way, Mary, and by the way, Bob. It's like it's all very constricted. And in voiceover, when you don't see our face and all that, when we're just on the mic, we're doing this stuff. We're always like, and we're getting this, but none of that for that particular session. So that was the most constrictive of voiceover things I'd ever done. And so those would be the challenges. Well, the Marvel vs. Capcom were easy. Those were just come in, like, here's what you did, and now just grunt for an hour, and here's your paycheck. Bye.
How do you get around that? Because like you said, acting is so physical. How do you just exceptional mental fortitude?
Well,
how do you?
Well, it's like a challenge. Listen, I'm an on-camera actor as well, so there's many a times that I'll be doing a scene with somebody, and they're doing my coverage. It's over the shoulder of the other actor, but the other actor's not there. They couldn't be there. Oh, and it's because of the particular situation. I'm in like I'm crawling through a cave or something, so they had to place the camera closer. So I have to pretend that I'm seeing the other actor on a piece of tape that's right next to the camera, and I have to remember their reactions when we did their coverage. And if we didn't do their coverage first, it's my coverage first. Then I have to hope that that they're going to do something that works with what I'm doing. Usually there was a master, so I'll remember from the master and I can do that. But that's always what you, in on camera, there's always what seems so kind of natural in the film can be very unnatural when they're shooting it. So it's just, it's problem solving on the spot in your mind for whatever the truth is you need to be conveying, or the emotion, or what have you. You get really used to it. So that's what it was there. That was like, what, I think 6 or 7 sessions over summer in 2008. And so it was a little like get into the booth, kind of like the I always think of like Altered States, and he goes into the yeah, you know what I mean? It's a little bit like that. It's like, and now like blow your brain. Now, the flip side is I did NBA 2K14, which is a sports game, so I know there's not a lot of people out there that know it for your audience, but it is the first time I've ever been a video game character. And they literally scanned my face and everything, so I'm in the game as myself.
That's
and though they spent all their time designing the players to look like these famous players, so they look very good. I think they kind of like, no one knows what DC Douglas looks like, so they just kind of like, fine. So I look a little like a melting Bill Pullman.
Oh, no.
Yeah, there's a video of it on my website if you get a chance to see it. My NBA 2K14.
I actually, every time I run into someone that has a fan of NBA 2K14, like, the agent that talks to you in the limo and tries to get you sign with him, I totally know that guy. And people are like, what? No way! So, I mean, there are a lot of people that I do know that play it, and they're totally,
that's cool. That's cool. I'm
amazed by it. They're like, the guy in the limo? I'm like, I totally know the guy in the limo. It's pretty awesome.
The beauty of that whole session, what made that session so cool was the fact that the director of it, and I can't. If you go to my website, I have a blog post about the production of it, and his name is in there because I wish I could remember right off the hand. He was wonderful. He was an actor's director. It was one of the best acting experiences I had had on a set because first off, I was doing full body mocap and voiceover simultaneously, which is ultimately where the whole industry is going. And the thing that was neat about it was that it was like doing theater in the round, which is usually these where you have 3/4 or maybe even a full circle, and the audience is all around you. So you act, but yet it was also like doing it in a close-up the entire time because the camera's right on your face, and you're working in the round. So you have a 360-degree reality, and you always have a close-up. It's very funny because we would do a scene, and the end of the scene would come. I had so many entrances and exits in that video game because I come in and I tell them something and then I leave. So we're having a scene and I kind of become an a-hole in this thing, and so I'm kind of an a-hole to him, and then I'm supposed to just be disgusted. I'm leaving. I'm supposed to whatever. Now we were allowed to improv a lot off the dialogue, so we would come up with some things that were pretty funny. So we'd have a thing. We have a little improv moment that's very funny, and then I'm walking out, and of course the minute I walk past him, part of me is thinking stage, and the audience is behind me and they can't see me, and I just start smiling because I'm thinking it was so funny. But then I glance up at the big giant screens they have in this. It's like this giant sound studio, giant screens that have the live feed of our headgear, and all of a sudden I look up and I see myself looking up, smiling, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm still on camera. I'm on camera until they say you're no longer on camera. There was some funny things to learn about that, but overall, acting-wise, for mocap, motion, and visual and voiceover, all of it being together, it's the most exciting experience. I would love to do something like that again.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you about that because a lot of video games are doing that, like The Last of Us. Actually, anything by Naughty Dog, they do that where the performance is all captured, your body, your face, everything. Yeah. You actually act with other people. So I'm pretty sure that's what you would like to do, in the future.
Oh, I would. What I'd be curious about, the thing is it's that hopefully they can do anything with the body. They can make you fat or skinny or whatever, or buff or whatever with in post. So the problem is because they think now we're going more cinematic, we need casting directors who cast for movies and TV, and the casting directors don't have that technical concept. In other words, I went on one game. I think it was. What's the big one, the famous one that's war? Call of Duty. I went on one of the Call of Duty ones where they were doing that, and I came in and I'm like, and it was like there were a couple roles, and I thought I was going in for the 50-year-old tough general. That's what I have the voice for that, and I'm the guy who comes in and talks like this to you. They brought me in, and they wanted me instead to audition for the 30-year-old because they have the baby face. They wanted me to audition for the 30-year-old. buff lead who wouldn't have a voice like mine. You know, I'm gonna sound like, you know, it just wouldn't sound right. And I came in there and I did it, and she's like, "Can you just sound a little?" It's like, don't you understand? Have me read for the other role. They'll make me look fat, paunchy, or whatever you need. It's like, it's just no concept of that. So in not all cases, but in some cases. So it's again, it's all growing pains for that aspect of the industry.
But I think that'll be better because, I mean, you know, you would probably prefer to actually work off somebody that's there with you, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. And I had a blast on NBA 2K14. The guy who opposite of who's the my player. For those of you who know the game, you create your player. Well, it's one actor who does this role, and they just basically, depending on if you choose him as 6'8", his voice lowers. If you choose him as a shorter guy, his voice gets higher. It's like a pitched thing on his voice. He's just done his own straight performance of it, but his performance was phenomenal. He was great. If you link to the video, I think his name is Mark Middleton or something. He's a really talented guy out of Washington, D.C., so I just want to give him a shout-out and apologize that I just forgot his name. But I forget everybody's name. I don't even know your names, and it's on the screen.
We're all horrible with names.
Yeah, don't worry about that, dude.
Don't even worry about it. And again,
face blindness.
But anyway, so moving on to the next question. You know, going back to a tweet that I tweeted to you very long ago. You know, you've played one of my favorite characters in Mass Effect, and that was Legion. And I asked you, on a scale of 1 to T-Pain, how modified was your voice, and you responded with a 5. What exactly in your voice, was it your pitch or just like the volume, a reverb? What was applied to make you completely sound like a robot?
I mean, here's the thing. You guys can figure it out yourselves. All I have to do is say it right now. It's does this unit have a soul? So you hear the voice. Now go and listen to the original thing, and you can hear my voice is there. It's stuff that's put on top of it. There's a little bit through it. I don't know what you'd call that, a little vibrato or whatever. But everything else is kind of on top, and it's more of an EQ thing. But they didn't pitch me up or down. They pitched me way down for the Geth Elder at the end of ME3, the big red guy who comes in. That's my voice as well, but they pitch it down. The beauty is that I do, whenever a Geth speaks, it's my voice. So when you have the history one, when you go through the history of the Geth, that hologram thing, I'm doing the voices of all the Geth in that as well. And if the Geth ever do come back in that universe, please, it'll be my voice as well. So at least that's what the producer said when we were recording.
So was, you know, I'm assuming then voicing Legion wasn't very difficult because it really was your voice.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's probably the easiest. Well, no, that's kind of funny because here's the thing: he's within this range right here. So you can't have too much emotion, but you can't have too little emotion. It's got to be kind of in this one sweet spot, and it's and it really became apparent when we did ME3 because you have if you let me die at the end of 2, you meet a new Legion in 3. If you kept me alive, then it's your old buddy Legion. And the third thing was there were neutral lines that had to work for either Legion. So if you let me die, and it's a new Legion, I'm not as nice. I'm a little more snippy, and it's almost a little low. It's like a slightly lower voice. If it's your friend Legion, it's slightly higher voice. And then the neutral is kind of in between. And the attitude is slightly different between the two as well. So so those are subtle differences. But you know, I've never claimed to be, and I'm too lazy to become that kind, a John DiMaggio or a Jeff Bennett. Those people that have 50 freaking voices in their catalog they could pull out and accents up the kazoo. I wish I had that instinct, drive, and discipline to be that kind of a voice actor, but I'm not. I just admitted it. My first love is acting with my eyes, and you don't really get that with video games. Even when you're doing the full, NBA 2K14, it may be capturing your eyes, but you can see the soul's not there when you're watching the CGI version of it. But with film and TV, when I'm doing that stuff, it's about truth and truth in the eyes, which is it's harder. You can't fake the truth in the eyes as well as you can truth in the voice, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. No, I totally get it.
So, and that's the challenge I like, not the challenge of being an amazing technician with a myriad of accents and stuff like that. Though that is an amazing feat, these people that do that. And they do that, and they also bring truth to the character and all of that. So that's why I joke that I'm a hack, I'm a voiceover hack. And I don't mind it, I don't mind saying that. I've just got very lucky. I got in 2 huge games within a few years of each other, and then I got a TV show. I got a cartoon based on Mass Effect, by the way. I'm in Transformers Rescue Bots because I worked with Ginny McSwain on Mass Effect 2. When they did the auditions for the game, I didn't know who was directing. I just sent it to my agency like everyone else did. But Ginny McSwain goes through the 500 or 100 submissions that she gets. She goes, I know that guy, DC Douglas. He'd be good for this. Puts me in the short list. And then they send a short list of 5 or 10 people. And then from there, I got lucky. I beat out, 5 or 8 other people for the role. And but I mean, those odds are so much easier to work with than when you're trying to beat out another 150. So that's why I hate going out on commercials, because they'll have callbacks for commercials. I don't go on commercials. I stopped years ago. You go on a commercial and you get a callback. You'd think callback means they're down to just the ones they like. Their callback is 30 to 40 people. It's like, that's stupid. And then when they put you on avail meaning that we're probably going to hire you, but that's what it used to mean. In commercial world, avail just means, well, we like 20 of you, so we're going to put you all on avail, meaning hold the date, and then we'll let you know who we're casting. Whereas in guest star TV work, when I get a callback, I'm going up, on average, anywhere between 4 to 8 other people. And those odds I love. So that's why I kind of like have a 50-50 callback booking ratio with callbacks. This is inside baseball, so this is probably boring to you guys. Sorry.
No, not at all. I mean,
actually, I wanted to ask you about Legion. Did you have any influences with the voice? Because a lot of actors, whenever they do robots, they're always Hal from 2001. Did you do that too, or was it something else?
Well, that's kind of, I mean, it sort of starts that, but they said that I think can't remember the original specs, but I think the specs were something to the effect of Hal, in that it is a measured voice, but that there's emotion. It was interesting. I wish, I probably threw it away. That's too bad. If I could find my original Legion audition, I definitely threw. Oh wait, maybe I didn't. Auditions. My original Legion audition it's a script that's not anywhere in the games. It's a requiem speech at a funeral. And
what?
Yeah.
What do you mean, like a funeral in the game, like a character funeral, or?
Yeah. Well, no, it's not even. Well, no, I think it was from a whole other project altogether. They wanted to see how we could. If I turn that on, it's gonna screw with my internet, so I can't do it. But you know what? Remind me, if I can find my original audition.
We can add it. We can link it.
You need to post that somewhere on your
blog. It just occurred to me while I was talking to you guys that I have. If I go Legion and my subject.
So my next question is Mass Effect 3, you were Tactus, the Garrus.
No, I'm not Garrus.
The Turian, the Turian in the Citadel that you talked to get medical supplies, and you were also in Mass Effect 2. The snarky guy sitting at the table that said, "Looks like you put a little bit more food and a little less ass."
Yeah, I totally forgot that line until somebody played it for me. I'm also in there. There's a scene. No one's been able to find it for me. It's a bar scene, and I forget which species I am, but I think it's a lower gruff species that's talking to each other, and I think I'm going on about. I don't know why she doesn't like me. I thought I did everything she wanted me to do. It was like the whole relationship, drunk guys at a bar talking, and I've never been able to find that.
If I find it, I will let you. I'll record it. But was it complicated voicing multiple characters in one game, or is it just something that just kind of brush off your shoulders and go?
No,
with it?
Well, for me, it's always a little complicated because, like I said, I don't have 25 voices, and I've got a very low voice, so it's. But then I surprise myself too, because it's like I said, I'm lazy, but when I'm given a challenge, I try to go for the challenge. There is a cartoon that I did called The American Dream. It's a libertarian story thing that sadly, when I saw that they were promoting it, they were connected to Glenn Beck and all these other whack jobs. And there's some wacky things, conspiracy things in this cartoon, but it's still fun because it's just 2 actors voicing all the characters, Jess Harnell and myself. And Jess, of course, does the majority of the voices because he's so amazing at that. And then I voice I think I voiced like 6 or 7 voices in that cartoon. And I went through it, and I grabbed all the ones that I could remember doing and put them together on a video. It's on my website, The American Dream, on dcdouglas.com. And but I listened to it, and I went, well, that ain't bad at all. It looks like I have a fair amount of voices. So it's so it's only difficult in that I'm insecure and I don't think I can do it. But then when I'm challenged and I'm given specs on what the character is, I can usually rise to that challenge. So, but you know, so many characters in Mass Effect are very low, gruff kind of voices. So there's only so many gruff versions you can do. You know. I mean, I did a lot of like Soldier 1, Soldier 2, that kind of stuff in that game as well. That, you know, I have no idea where. Just a lot of screaming, and it's like it doesn't matter because they're so separated in time between where you encounter them that you would never recognize them as the same. So
interesting.
I enjoyed doing Tactus. That was an interesting kind of place that I set my voice in for, and then of course they put that slight effect on it too. And it was an interesting scene, you know.
Interesting. You know, and also watching all the panels online, you look like you have a lot of fun with Ali Hillis and Jennifer Hale and all them, which I envy you for even knowing them.
Yeah.
But in
the threesome we had was amazing. It started with their husband saying yes, and no.
Oh boy.
Tim's like, oh Jesus. But and
Dude,
you know,
they're such lovely people and very talented.
is there a specific character, not necessarily actor, that you had the most fun recording with? Or like, I don't know how you guys did it, but like, who did you enjoy doing dialogue with the most? Like, did you enjoy your interactions with Tali, with Liara?
Well, that's the thing is we don't get to record together in video games. It's you only come in and you get to, like for Mass Effect, I worked alone. I came in. Sometimes I'd see somebody before or after a session. Usually not, though, because we'd finish a little earlier than my time allotment. Because especially in Mass Effect 2, Ginny was very... and I'd go in there, we had 4 hours, and we'd record up to like 10 minutes before we would finished everything, and then, you know, we'd say goodbye, and I would book out of there, and then, you know, miss whoever was coming in next. So I never got to record with other people. It's only usually it's in cartoons you get that opportunity sometimes. So like with Transformers Rescue Bots, we've actually become kind of a family. I don't know if you guys saw the video I just put out, but we just finally got the press release out about when season 2 begins airing. So we're like, you know, I have a text thread with the entire cast. We all like will text each other out of random times or on holidays and things like that, you know. And so when I knew it was coming out, I texted them. I go, hey guys, do me a favor, record yourselves mouthing the lyrics to our show, and I'm going to edit something together really quickly, but can you send it to me by 9 tonight, you know? So not everybody could do, but, you know, I got, you know, 5 of us or 6 of us are doing it, you know, and I put out the video, and, you know, it's to announce the thing. It worked really well. So we're really close that way, and that's because we get to see each other, get to be around each other.
Yeah.
And that's what's so unusual about in the voiceover world is when you get to do that kind of thing. And they really try with Rescue Bots. They really try to record a lot of us, as much of us together as possible. I mean, even LeVar is in there recording with us and all. It's really sweet.
That's awesome. So this is actually a question from Tony. Tony, do you want to ask him your question?
Actually, before I ask this, can I ask another one? This just came up. Do you have any like rituals that you do before you go into do your voice acting and stuff? Do you wear specific kind of clothes? Do you drink a specific kind of tea? Like, what rituals do you go through before you start doing like voice acting in a studio?
It's just mainly heroin, and it's kind of just right. Oh, you laugh, but the voice goes down an octave, and you know, actually, the only I'm like I said, you know. I'm so glad casting people don't watch this. I'm a lazy voice actor. The only thing that I do is I have to have coffee, and then I go through the alphabet. A B B B B B B C C C C C C D D D D D. I basically do that through the whole alphabet. And when I get to certain ones, you know, like W, like a W W W W W W W W. You know, you play around with each one of those things, but I go through the whole alphabet, and that's kind of like the psych up warm. And then of course I have to blow my lips. Say what? Blow my lips, which is I have to do that because I'm about to tell a story about cancer and you laughed. No.
Oh God.
I had a basal cell tumor in my upper lip that I didn't know. I thought it was like a clear mole that grew for about 10 years Is Tatjana feeling guilty? Yes, she's guilty. But I thought it was like a clear mole. I thought it had a character to me, a little like Abraham Lincoln. And one day, this was back when I actually still went out on auditions for commercials. And there was a casting place I went into, and these people I knew really well, and they go, listen, you were on the short list for this huge, one of those commercials for like, remember the 80s? They were great. And one of those half-hour commercials for CDs that you would buy or whatever. But it would have been a huge buyout, like 50 grand buyout and all that. And so I wanted that. And apparently I seemed very 80s to them. So I was getting close to it. But then they had concerns because they wondered about this thing here. And so, and the camera guy, after I did one of the final callbacks, he goes, have you ever thought about getting that removed? He goes, because that's like, you know, for commercials, it kind of pops up for them. And I'm like, I hadn't thought. I guess I should. I've been putting it off. So I went to a little dermatology place, and I said, can we just get this removed? They're like, oh, yeah. She goes in there. She's trying to remove it and all that. And then apparently she goes, cuts all the way through, cuts an artery, I'm gushing blood. And she's like, hang on. Gets it all taken care of, and then says, we're going to send this away for biopsy. The thing was they should have biopsied it first. But it's one of those places that doesn't give a shit. And, because, man. So it came back, it turned out it was cancer, and because they had already cut it, that means that it spreads, you spread the cancer cells. So that meant I had to go back in, and they had to cut a periphery around it all. So I ended up losing about a quarter of my upper lip here. And you can see it in certain lighting, the scar and all that, but the lip stretches pretty well, so it doesn't look too bad. But it's stiff in the morning because there's basically a scar there. And when it's stiff in the morning, my diction goes and all of that, so I have to blow my lips, which is the story of blowing my lips.
Now we know.
The more you know.
And what about clothing and stuff? Do you just wear whatever you want, right?
Oh, Jesus, whatever's clean or semi-clean, I throw on and I go. Especially sessions at 9 a.m. It's like I'm not getting dressed up for anybody. Most voiceovers, now mind you, I make most of my money and most of my gigs are commercials. So I go in and it's usually a film patch to somebody in Idaho or New York or San Francisco. And so I walk into a studio and it's just the engineer who's dressed just like I am. And I've got a hat on with bad hair, and I've got my Starbucks, and I walk in and I record for an hour, and I talk to people on a mic, and that's it. And then I'm out of there. So I'm used to that kind of thing. But even video game sessions, it's like you're not seeing anybody else except for maybe them. So I might clean up a little better. The only time that I really clean up is when I'm going to do Rescue Bots, because then I'm seeing all these other people, and we're going to go out afterwards to umami and have burgers and drinks and stuff. So.
All right, so yeah, the other question I was going to ask is, because this is how I actually kind of became a real fan of yours, because I like what you did in Resident Evil, but then my friend was like, dude, you got to check out he's like, Albert Wesker, he has a website, he's also Legion, he does a lot of stuff, because you do like ringtones for people and stuff like that in the Wesker voice, and then I see that you're really involved with the fans, so why do you think that's important for you to have that kind of connection that you do with the fans?
I need to gather as much power as I can. When I want to take over, I'll have them. No, well, first, before Resident Evil, the only fans I would get, let's say, would be like in the 90s. In '96, I did a show called Boston Common on NBC, and it played like I think right after The Single Guy, before Seinfeld or something like that. Like perfect spot on Thursdays, and so it was kind of a hit show. And I ended up becoming recurring. I did 10 episodes on the show. And I got a fan mail. I got a postcard from what obviously sounded like a really old guy who wanted a picture of me so he could masturbate to me. So that was the end of my fan base. So when I started to get real fans, from Resident Evil and all that, it's like, that to me is like that. Yes, it's a commodity, in that these are people that if you respect them and they respect you, if you need to get a message out or you want to help promote something, they help you, and that's a wonderful thing. And also, if I want to do charity stuff like bring attention to Kiva.org, which I think is a really amazing. It's not charity; it's better than charity, but it's an amazing organization. So when I want to get the word out about that, that's why I did the ringtones. That was to bring attention to Kiva.org, which is KIVA.org. Clinton went on about it, our President Clinton, as one of these amazing organizations that people should look into. It's about micro-lending to these countries. But when I put that out, and I ask people to share it, then all of a sudden I've got strangers. I've got, 15,000 on Twitter that may be willing to share it, same on Facebook. It's like, That is it's a commodity, but it's also it's this thing I respect greatly. And then when I go to the cons and then I meet these people, up close, a lot of it is when I was in elementary school, I was beat up a lot. I was called faggot. I was tormented. I had no friends, and this was actually back when like bullying was like a rite of passage. It's not like it's going to cause you psychological damage, which it does. But then it was thought it's just character building. It just teaches you to be mean to other people. Really, is what it does. And but I was going through all of that, and my only refuge was coming home, and not video games. I'm old. I didn't have video games then, but was watching television because I wanted to be an actor. I wasn't watching cartoons. I was watching Bewitched. I was watching MASH reruns. I was watching I Dream of Jeannie, things like that. And I totally escaped into that, both into the fantasy world of what those shows were, and also because I was an actor and I wanted to be in, because I knew they were fake. I wanted to be in that reality, of being on a show that was about fantasy, So those actors meant a lot to me, and this is going to be a long story. I'm going to try to make it short, but get to your point about my point about the fans. I came to Los Angeles. To be an actor, and about 7 years into it, there was a whole story on Entertainment Tonight about Dick Sargent, who was the second Darren on Bewitched, and he was dying of AIDS, and it was about and the reason there was a story about it was that first it was the first story where he told it, but then the second story was about this a-hole Fred Phelps and the Westboro Baptist bullshit church that and his family cult or whatever, how they were going to come and protest his funeral. So I mean, they've been doing this for 20, 30 years. So I heard that story on Entertainment Tonight, and I got so upset that I called up. This is where like I called for the Geico Freedom Works Tea Party thing. It goes way back for me. I called up Fred Phelps' church and talked to his wife and was trying to talk sense into them and then getting angry with her and all of that. And I hung up. I was going to write a hate letter, and I'm writing the hate letter, and I went, what a waste of energy. I should instead. Obviously I didn't learn the lesson, but I should, instead of writing this letter to them, I should write a letter to Dick Sargent. So I turned around and I decided to write the letter to him, and in the letter I explained to him what he meant to me, somebody, a young person who was getting beat up in school and had no friends, and came home and I found refuge in watching his show Bewitched, and also knowing I wanted to be an actor, watching him as an actor on that show, and excited when I saw him in other things. And then flash forward to me being in Los Angeles. I say this in the letter. Flash forward to me being in Los Angeles. After my acting class ends at midnight, we had an 8 to midnight class. We all went to this bar called Fellini's on Melrose, which is right around the corner from our class. We walked in there, and who's at the bar but Dick Sargent, sitting there having drinks with his friends and all of that. And in that moment, I see him, and it was a signpost saying, look how close I've come to the reality that I wanted, to the thing that separates me, that removes me from all those a-holes that used to give me shit. And it's like, had I had the guts, I would have gone up and got an autograph and all of that. I didn't, because it's, once you're in LA, you realize you don't do that. But that was the experience. And I said, so I wrote in that letter to him this experience, and I said, just so you know, all of the great feelings that you created in me, that you have no idea you created, you just were doing a job, but you created that in me. And I hope that, and I know that I'm not the only one, so I hope that when you die, that this energy that you created, this good feelings you created in me and all these other fans, is the energy that propels you out of this plane. And that's the letter I sent to him. And that's the best, most concise way that I can explain. He called me, by the way, a month later and expressed thanks for the letter. It was very, I wish I could have held on to the voicemail message. But so when I meet fans at cons and things like that, and they go on about how playing Resident Evil 5 meant so much to them, and my character, or Mass Effect, or whatever it is, I don't look at them and go, yeah, this is a job, whatever, let me just sign and buy my picture for $10. Yes, buy my picture for $10, but more so, I completely identify with what they're talking about. I understand what they're saying, so I feel for them. It's and not everybody's gone through the same shit that I went through. They didn't have a horrible time. They just happen to like playing video games, and they appreciate my performance, and I like that. But then you every now and then you meet some of those fans, and you go, yeah, I know where you are. I know what you're going through, and I've been there, and so I feel the connection, and there's an appreciation for it. So I think I answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. But that, like I said, that's kind of what made me more of a fan of yours, because I just liked your performance as Wesker, and now I was like, hey, this is a really cool guy, you know?
But thanks for that. But that's why, that's the reason I interact with the fans and all of that, is because of all of that. It's not, I'm as faulted as anybody else. I've got as much gray area as anybody else, and look at, I'm drinking wine and it's only 7:20.
So DC, I have 2 more questions for you, and then if you don't mind, for a couple minutes after, a couple other people on the staff want to hop on the video call and meet you and just say hi. But my next question is, I've seen it several times, and I think it's like the sexiest thing I have ever seen. But for those of us who are in the dark, tell us about Apocalypse Kiss, and what do we get to see besides your beautiful, perfect ass, which I have got to touch, and it is just as I got to touch it. And it is just as perfect as it looks. Internet, you don't remember me touching your ass, and then you touched my ass? Oh,
we were all I remember.
It was me, you, and Top Pat, and we all grabbed each other's butts, and it was like a butt trifecta. And Sam and Adam were in the corner, like, what is happening?
That's a good bar. And apparently a too loud bar, which is why we're back here doing the interview.
Sorry.
Apocalypse Kiss. Here's one thing that I can thank Resident Evil for, is of all the fans, out of the fan base came Roxy Tyler, which is a character name. Carmela Hazlett is her name. She was a big fan of mine, and her husband, Christian Jude Grillo, produces films there in Philadelphia, local films, that actually get distribution and all of that. He had done, like, I guess, three films by the time this happened. Anyway, she reached out to me and she said, we need to get you in one of our films. And of course I wrote back on Facebook. I'm like, yeah, it sounds great. Like, that'll happen. And then lo and behold, I get an email from her husband with a script and saying, here are 2 roles, one that shoots a day, one that shoots a week. Would you be interested in doing either one of these? And of course, one of them was the lead, one of the leads, which is this serial killer. I went, well, I want to do this serial killer, motherfucker. So I said, yeah, I'd be happy to do that if but mind you, you got to talk to my agent. There's, it's got to be union, it's got to be a certain rate and all that. And he said, absolutely. Contacted my agent. A month later, my agent sends me a deal memo, so it actually is happening, like a professional production happening. And I'm like, okay. It's probably going to be horrible, but I'll do it anyway. Who knows? And but we had like 6 months to get ready for it. And in it, he's got like a scene where I'm working out and all that. And I said, I guess I got to be in shape for that. So I guess I should get in shape for that. So I got my old trainer back, and I'd gotten kind of soft and pudgy and fat. So I transformed myself in the 6 months leading up to it. And then just as we were getting up to production, I talked to him and I said, since you guys are fans of Resident Evil and Albert Wesker, why don't we make the character look like Albert Wesker, just as like a nod to the fans? The character himself is very different from Albert Wesker. He's a spoiled, rich narcissist, OCD freak. Anyway, you'll see. I go, but we could like dye his hair blonde and go tan and all that. And he's like, he goes, you dye your hair? And I'm like, absolutely. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And then I got a contact so that one eye, I wanted to get both eyes to be kind of like the orangish, and then I couldn't find them in time, so instead I just made one eye really blue and one eye brown, but dyed the hair like blonde, dyed the eyebrows, and did the tanning thing. And unfortunately, I injured myself, so my pecs are not as big as they should be in the movie. Regardless, it's such a short sequence in the film. But I go out there, great guys, amazing. What they were able to do with such little money. The trailer looks like it's a $500,000 film. In just the locations, the video, the special effects, and all of that, and it's a fraction of that budget. And so I was really impressed with his confidence, his attitude, and the friendliness of the crew. Anyway, the film comes out. Oh, can I say that yet? They have a date yet. I don't think I'm allowed to say exactly when it comes out, but it was going to be soon this year. And I think you'll probably be able to get it on Redbox. It may even be Netflix and some other places, but definitely Redbox. And as soon as it's out, I'm going to let people know. But yeah, it should be a very fun film.
It's exciting. And of course, DC, our last question for you today, and again, I thank you very much for doing this again, is,
what would you...
Exactly. What do you have to say to aspiring actors like Tim, or people that want to get into voice acting?
Do we know that about me?
Don't
Yeah,
do
we
it,
do.
Tim.
We do.
Don't do it, Tim.
Don't do it. That's what I keep hearing.
Well, it's like I can give you like a short answer or the long answer, and I know this interview's gotten really long, so I don't want to give you too much to have to do here. But if it's your dream, it's what you want to do, then do it no matter what anybody else says. It's you don't know how long you're going to live, and so money is never a guarantee. And you'll figure all that stuff as you go. But if you want to do it, it's one of those things that you just can't do half-assed. Maybe you can get a gig here or there or whatever, but you're never going to be fully satisfied. So if you want to do it, you got to jump into it. Then secondly, what is it you want to do? A lot of people say when they want to do voiceover, they think, I just want to do video games and anime. That's a lot of the fans that come up and they say that. And it's like, well, there's actually not a lot of money in video games and anime. There are no residuals on either of them. The residuals are on commercials. So, for instance, a good example is Maurice LaMarche. He's been on these cartoons and these commercial campaigns. Those are the things where you can have a really good life. You can make a lot of money. But then you think about people that and I'm not going to say names, but the people that only do anime. They got paid for the gigs and that was it. They don't get any more money. So that's why you might see them at cons a lot, hawking a lot of wares or whatnot, or doing other ancillary things because you have to, because it's a very expensive career to have. So if you want to get into voiceover, the more things you can do, the more opportunities you have to make money. You want to do anime, you want to do video games, you can do commercials, you do narration. You start to spread it out even further, then you have more opportunities for gigs, and then you don't poo-poo one over the other, like I did with the anime stuff. Had I realized I could have been doing more cons as well, that helps out monetarily as well. So, but that's what I would say is open your mind up, because in the video games you get paid for a session and that's it. And yes, it's great to get I'm in that video game, but it's like you work 3 sessions and you're done. Video game comes out 6 months, a year later, and you're still looking for your next job. Meanwhile, you're a host at Denny's or something, trying to get by. So, but if you have a full career where you're going out in commercials or you're doing narrations from a home studio and things like that, that's different. So. That's a general thing I wanted to say about it. Now, more specifically, I would say if you want to be a voice actor, as I said earlier in the interview, it's not just what you do with your voice. It's all the stuff behind the voice that makes it interesting. So it's about understanding what the tool is and about truth and emotional truth. And all of that comes from getting into acting classes first. You want to go through at least a round of acting classes, and who knows, you may even like acting as well. Improv classes, because especially when you're in a session, they go, okay, by the way, we want you to be like the captain of this ship that's from Nova Scotia. You've got to be able to come up with something for that immediately. And improv will help you work on your feet faster with that stuff. And even in commercial copy, improv works, because you're doing like a dialogue thing, you and another guy, and then usually at the end, your dialogue ends, but they always want a button. They want you to come up with something a little extra that just makes it interesting. Having improv experience helps you do that. Then singing. Singing helps in knowing what your tool is, and confidence, being able to put it way out there and to take risks. So, and also being able to hear the music, not just in actual music, but in the script that you get and the character that you have. All characters have a certain rhythm and music to them, and you want to be able to find what is that for that character. It helps you with the characterization. So that's for cartoons and video games and anime. So that's something to take into consideration. So you want to do a career in it, then I would start with those things. If you're in a town that doesn't offer these kinds of classes, well, then you've got to be honest with yourself. Do you want to have this career staying in the town you're in, and the town you're in is not one of the major hubs? You're not going to have a very good career. You could probably do commercials, some commercials locally, maybe local commercials, non-union, and narration stuff, and you set up your home studio and you could do it out from there. Or if you want to have a full-on career and get in the union and all of that, then you need to go to, ideally, New York or Los Angeles. After that, then you're looking at Atlanta and San Francisco, Chicago, that kind of stuff. But so you have to really make that decision. Are you all in, or as in the movie American Hustle? Are you feet up? You got to be feet up, man.
Right.
But so that's those are all the things you have to take into consideration. On my website, there is under, I think it's about DC Douglas down there. There's a beginner's voiceover guide, which you may or may not. I mean, you may be beyond it or whatever. But in it, I break down if you want to have a career. I call it the country mouse and the city mouse kind of thing. If you want to have a career of staying in the town that you're in, here's the advice that I would do and the kinds of work you can get. But then then I have the other advice if you're going to go to the main hubs and try to have a career there. Yeah, and then the other thing I was just talking earlier about this with there is who's it? This advice Mandy Patinkin was saying essentially that if you want to do it no matter what anyone else says, go for it completely. And if you change your mind and you don't want to do it anymore, there's no shame in that. And then going and doing something else, because ultimately it is your life. It's like how you create your life, what you want to do with it. And it's just the one life that you have. You don't know how long it is, so do what you want. You want to change it, then change it. It's all up to you. So that's what I would say about it.
Real quick, do you actually know Mandy Patinkin?
No.
Oh, okay, I was gonna be like, oh my god!
Yeah, wow.
I did an episode of Criminal Minds, but it was before him. It was when Joe Mantegna was on the show. It was a sweetheart. But yeah, no, I've never met Mandy.
Wow. Well, Tony, Tim, is there anything else you would like to ask DC?
No,
oh gosh,
this was a great interview. I loved it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was terrific. I learned a lot. Learned a lot about you personally, and I'm just thrilled because man, I love Wesker.
But I have zombie stuff coming up that'll make people happy. Because listen, Albert Wesker's dead, so unless they do they go back in the timeline.
A big mistake on their part, man. Yeah.
Well,
hey, listen, if they're coming out with another Mass Effect, they may call you up. Just saying.
So what were you saying about the time?
Yeah, but I was gonna say if they, the only way they can come back is maybe if they go back in the timeline or something like that, which they could do. And even then, they may not call me; they may call another voice actor. You never know.
Yeah.
But even though that's the case, I still try to at least keep people happy as long as I can. I'm in talks with a production company here in Los Angeles that they do a lot of B and C films, budget wise. And I'm working with a director I just worked with on another film, a comedy that's coming out recently. It'll come out actually in 2 months called Alpha House. And we're going to try to put together a zombie film that will have Resident Evil-esque qualities in it. And I will play a character that will have some Wesker-ish qualities. Not like in Apocalypse Kiss where I look like him but I'm completely different. This one will be, I may not look like him, but I'll be a bit more similar to him in his machinations and whatnot. And I'm going to crowdsource my fans through Facebook and Twitter to help with some of the ideas. And we're pitching them, and they're very interested, so hopefully I can have by the end of the year a zombie film going with this production company that will in part have been created by the help of Resident Evil fans. So more to come on that.
So you play the games you voiced in?
I wish. Right. No, I don't. I don't have any kind of station or play. I tried to play video. Tried to play. What's that thing with the cars?
The
Grand Theft Auto. About 12 years ago, I tried to play it, and after 20 minutes, I felt kind of gray and like listless, and I thought I really need to go back and do something productive.
Oh no.
That was a horrible game to play for that kind of experience. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to play Mass Effect because that actually excites me. The whole, where you can go. I'm not a horror fan per se, so the Resident Evil ones wouldn't get me as much. Though I do like the long storyline and the rich history that it has. But blowing up zombies is not as exciting to me as the fantasy of space. That's always, for me as a kid, that was mine. It was. Raised on silent running and Star Wars and that kind of thing.
Well, this was a terrific episode. This was a terrific interview. I loved listening to everything you had to say.
Thank you.
Your warmth and openness is it's a sign of a terrific actor, and you got it. And thank you so much for coming here to.
It's a sign of my heroin working. Sorry.
And we will put links to the show, Transformers, Kiva, in our show notes. You can follow us.
Yay. And DCDouglas.com.
Yay!
You can follow us at 2DX on Twitter. You can follow me at Pleased to Meet Ya. Pleased to meet you with you spelled YA. And Tatjana, how about you?
You can follow me at digital_vixen, except it's VIX, the number 3 and the letter N, because I'm just too elite for the internet.
And Tony?
All right, you can follow me at Romudeth, ROMUDTH. Yeah, that's how you spell it. And go to dualshockers.com, where I write about video games and stuff.
And DC, this is your time to plug.
Oh, yeah. DCDouglas.com, or on Twitter, it's DC_Douglas. Facebook, I think if you just put in DC Douglas, I should pop up there as a fan page. For those of you who are over 18 and are okay with over 18 material, you can find me on Tumblr as well. I think you can find me on Tumblr. Unless you have your filter on, then you won't find me because it is an NC, okay, not safe, NS, forward, FW, blog.
NSFW, yeah.
And then Apocalypse Kiss coming out this year. Please check it out. Alpha House is a comedy from Asylum Films coming out this year. Check it out. Helen Alone should be coming out by the end of the year. An independent film is coming out. And Transformers Rescue Bots on the Hub. Check it out. I'm also in Blaze Blue as Azrael. Blaze Blue as Azrael coming out.
Yeah.
And I'm in The Crew, which is coming out this year.
You're in The Crew! Oh my god, I'm so excited. Sorry, I totally have that game.
You know that game?
Yes! The car game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we all know about that,
I'm
dude.
gonna buy it.
Todd, you're squealing.
Sorry.
And then this
All right, thank you so much, DC. I hope you get to come on again in the future sometime, perhaps to talk about The Crew. And yeah, keep up to date on 2dx.com. There's plenty more episodes. There's plenty more articles and features coming along down the pipe. And yeah, that's it. So thank you for watching and listening.